right, so we'll just jump right in today. Thank you guys so much for joining our Facebook Live. My name is Erin, and I am with the Gout Support Group of America. And today we're going to be talking about managing gout during the summer. So before we jump in, I want to introduce our two co-founders. So we'll start with Dr. Parker's photo there on the right. So Dr. Chris Parker is a rheumatologist. He's a speaker and a physician educator, and he is based out of Austin, Texas. And he's worked with gout patients for many, many years and has really found that the patient voice is critical in relaying information to other patients and just providing support to others along their journey. And then here on the left, we have Gary Ho. So Gary was 24 years old when he had his first gout attack. Unfortunately, he found that his pain was not taken seriously, and he faced stigma from his friends, from employers, and even some healthcare providers. And then he found Dr. Parker, who helped him take control of his gout and manage his gout successfully. So together, they started the Gout Support Group of America. It started off as a just in-person support groups, and then they realized they could reach so many more people. And so they took it to Facebook, as what you all know as the Gout Support Group of America, and really excited that it's grown so much today. We have close to 15,000 members of the group. So even more, even more than 15,000 members, which is just incredible. So we really appreciate all of you being part of that group. And so the Gout Support Group of America officially launched as a nonprofit in 2021, and we're just really excited to be here with this programming tonight, and we want to thank you all for joining us. So before we jump into the discussion tonight, I was thinking, Dr. Parker, would you mind just giving us a brief overview of what gout actually is?
Sure. I'd love to do that. In fact, I do it many times a day in clinic because there's a lot of, as you mentioned, Erin, false perceptions and stigma and all kinds of stuff with gout. So I really try to ground people, and I love that opportunity at the beginning here. So first, most people know and have heard that gout is a disorder where their uric acid levels are high. But I like to start with what's uric acid, because that really, I think, lays the groundwork for the whole thing. So I tell people that it's important to know uric acid is a normal waste product. Normal waste product. All of God's creatures make uric acid. And the reason for that is all of God's creatures, as you know, have to eat food and extract nutrients and then get rid of waste. And uric acid is just a waste product. And the way our bodies work, in this case, two organs are in charge of getting rid of this waste. Kidneys, number one, about 2/3 or so of the uric acid goes out that way when they're working well. And about the 1/3 are the bowels. And so you might guess by knowing that if you had some kind of kidney problem or the kidneys weren't working very well, then of course that uric acid and perhaps other waste products could build up. And in the case of gout, that uric acid gets all the way, keeps going up and up until the blood becomes what we call not just concentrated, but saturated. And what that means is the normal way that these salts are dissolved in liquid, here the blood is basically water, that the concentration is so high that it forms these little crystals, and they won't dissolve, and they like to deposit in and around joints. Everybody's heard of that, especially in our group, right? Because as that happens intermittently, the immune system recognizes that those crystals are not supposed to be there. And when that recognition occurs, boom, a flare-up happens. And I'm singing to the choir on this one. That can be so painful. And that'll get you to the doctor and change the priorities of your day, for sure, when that on. But happily, generally, most of the time, those flare-ups will gradually cool off and the inflammation will go down. And you might think you're out of the woods. Oh, good. I hope that never happens again. But the vast majority of the time, it does. And it's often unpredictable, which of course causes its own fear of where, when's it going to happen next? It's going to ruin another vacation or something like that. So as this thing goes forward, the other thing that I like all of us to understand is those little uric acid gout crystals are not only in and around joints, but anywhere there's blood, they can land also. So if you said, can it get in the kidneys? I'd say yes. Can it get in the liver? I'd say yes. Can it get in the heart? I'd say yes. It can get into any organ where there's blood. That, Aaron, is gout.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I think that's a good level set before we hop into our discussion tonight. So we'll do that now. So as I mentioned beforehand, we're going to talk about ways that you can take control of your gout this summer. So Gary, I'm going to kick it over to you to talk through the first point here, which is travel with your medications.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Chris, awesome job.
Thank you.
That sounded horrible. The gout. Yes. So I'm a gouty. I have gout. I'm lucky enough to have it. My body I think we either, are not efficient of getting rid of the uric acid, or we overproduce, or maybe a combination of both. Since my organs are pretty good, I think, I'm just an overachiever. I overproduce, uric acid. So to keep me on the straight and narrow, with my work, I travel a lot. And so when you're traveling, when you're out and about, it's really important to plan ahead. So when I travel, there's a couple things that I do. First and foremost, I will make sure that I have my two main medications with me. For myself, gout will, I have to manage uric acid. And so I have maintenance medication that I will always have on me. I was on allopurinol for years, and it wasn't until recently, maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe 1 week ago, that Chris, we switched over to Fibolostat.
Mhm.
And so we're going to see how that works. I have high hopes for that medication, but that is with me all the time. If I'm at home, it's next to me on the nightstand. In the morning, I wake up and religiously I will take my medication. Then on the off chance that I will get an attack, which I haven't had an attack in 13 years, I still have my medication. This right here is my indomethacin. Even though I haven't taken it in a while, I always have it as backup. So these are the two things that I travel with right now: my maintenance medication and my anti-inflammatory medication, just in case, because I know I'm lucky enough to have gout, and so I'm going to think ahead. Secondly, as I'm traveling, I will never put my medication in the luggage that you basically, check, and don't do that at all. I have a travel bag, where I keep the essentials, right? Your floss, your brush, right? Toothbrush, your, deodorant, your comb. Actually, I don't have a comb. So, but, that bag will always have these two in that bag. And then I throw it into my backpack, and that's what I keep with me. In the backpack, you'll find my laptop, my medication is with me all the time, just in case. What's the chances of them losing my luggage? Maybe slim. But I'll tell you what, I don't want to be without my medication. There's just absolutely no way. So the key thing is to plan ahead and make sure you have the medication that you need to control and manage your gout.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
want to
Thank
jump
you.
in on something,
yeah.
Gary, just to amplify. I love it how you held up kind of one for each hand. And so I recognize that many patients, and I see this throughout the land, both when I did academic medicine and now I'm a community-based rheumatologist, patients are good and taking their med with them. And I love the tip about checking, putting it in the luggage that's going to walk on the plane with you. But sadly, I noticed that many doctors don't give people flare-up medicines in advance. I think that's a massive mistake because flare-ups are unpredictable, right? And so if you're one of those persons who your doctor hasn't given you something for a flare-up, I would just say, even if you're someone like Gary who hasn't had a flare-up in many years, just like, hey, I would sleep a lot better if I had something on hand just in case, because doc, these flare-ups can happen on the weekend or when I'm on vacation or when I'm on holiday. And so if you don't have it, just ask your doc because they already know what they're going to give you. I can tell you that. So just go ahead and get it in advance.
That is really sound advice. Honestly, part of what we do here is we try to empower you guys to find your voice, right?
Yeah.
As a patient or as a person living with gout, it's okay to voice your opinion, to ask. Sometimes, doctors will think, well, her uric acid level is pretty low. So, we're probably not going to need it. But
Right.
just like Chris said, on the off chance that, gout comes and knocks on your door and wants to, inflame your joints, you have something to beat it back with. You can't make peace with gout. It's either us pushing it back or gout will push us, back and forth. So good.
Yes, thank you both. Great advice. So we'll jump on to the next one now. So Dr. Parker, I'm going to throw this one to you. Just talking about staying hydrated over the summer.
Yeah, I think this is one that probably doesn't need a lot of amplification. I live in sunny Texas, and it certainly gets hot here, really fast. The Texas sun comes out as early as generally like early March. And so staying hydrated, why is that important in the world of gout? Well, for a couple of reasons. I mentioned earlier about the kidneys being an important organ to get rid of uric acid. And so if somebody has strong working kidneys and they're super healthy otherwise, and being dehydrated may not bother your kidney function at all, and it can still do its job. But if you have some degree of renal impairment, and on top of that, you become dehydrated, then that can make your kidney function even worse. And therein lies the problem, because those kidneys are needed to get rid of uric acid. And so if that uric acid really jumps up, boom, that can trigger an attack and ruin your vacation or wherever you're enjoying the beautiful sunny days. It doesn't have to be the beach. So what do? As you know, you try to stay hydrated, keep your temperature right. And again, it's common sense stuff on that one.
Definitely. Thank you. I think we'll stay with you, Dr. Parker, for this next one. If you want to touch on visiting your doctor.
Yeah. So we just created this thing at the Gout Support of America to help you organize your thoughts on a visit, because there's as I see it as a physician for more than a couple of decades, so in the 1900s, it's the same situation it is now. There's lots of competing priorities in that brief time that you get with your doctor. And so if you have kind of thought through your priorities before you get there, you're much more likely to successfully get those on the table and get them fixed, because they're going to want, they're going to want to cover the things that they want to make sure is okay as well. That's the value of this particular checklist right here. And as I mentioned, if you're already a person who, has had gout diagnosed and you're on maintenance therapy, ask them for flare-up medicines just in case before you need them. They work better if you start early anyway. So it's another good reason. And then if you're new to having gout and perhaps you have to go and see a rheumatologist and tell your story, then this checklist also helps you organize your thoughts so that important information is shared, so that the medical plan to solve this problem and manage this problem is taken care of. So important details.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Parker. And I'll just mention, I know that you said when you started that we just made this this checklist, but if
Yeah.
you do want to download this and print it off, it is available on our website. So if you go to goutsupportgroup.org and go to our resources section, it'll be on there. So just click on it and download it, and feel free to take this to however many appointments that you need over the summer.
Thank you for that, Aaron. I should have said that.
Oh, no. Yeah, of course. All right. So Gary, we're going to go back to you for number 4. So if you could just touch on planning ahead for potential attack.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, but I'm gonna tell you guys and remind you guys that if you have gout, you have to be a planner. You don't want to go out there and then feel that twinkling. You know what I'm talking about, when the joints, when the attack is coming. It's kind of like a freight train that's coming down. You kind of feel the rumbling, in the joint, and you just know, God, in a few hours, I'm going to be in pain. You don't want to wait until you're in, at a level 8, a level 9, or a level 10 pain, and you don't have anything at all. And you're hoping that, maybe if I just sit still long enough, the pain will go away. You need to make sure that you call your doctor. You have to develop a relationship with your doctor. So if you don't have a medical professional that you're working with, I highly suggest that you go look for one. It can be your primary care. It can be a rheumatologist, anybody that is in the healthcare industry that is interested in gout, knows a little bit, can probably help out. Secondly, like we were talking earlier, as you develop your relationship with your doctor, please feel that it's okay to voice your opinion, to voice your thoughts. It's even okay to seek a second opinion. That was one of the things that I had to struggle with in my 16 years of looking for a diagnosis. I went from one doctor to another, but when I would go to a doctor and they would tell me I don't have gout, or they don't think it's, that they're not going to do a simple blood test, I didn't know that I had an option to say, hey, wait a minute. I would like to insist on a blood test, for example. I didn't know that was an option. With the Gout Support Group of America, that changes. I found my voice, and I'm hoping that you guys who live with gout know that you have options and that you can speak up. So don't be caught off guard if you're living with gout. If you can manage gout, basically you're going to have a pretty normal life, a pretty awesome life. Many of you know that I'm a self-proclaimed foodie. I love to eat different types of food. And Chris will tell you, man, I will sit down with a nice juicy steak, right? And a glass of wine. And do I fear eating the foods that I love? No, because I know where my levels are at. I'm acting out of, I'm using data to help my decision making. And even before going on this webinar, I took out my Dandy Home Kit monitor, the UA Sure Kit, and I tested myself because I know that I owe Chris a blood test soon, in maybe a week or two. So I wanted to make sure that I'm kind of, on par. And just tonight, right before the webinar, I took my blood sample, and my UA level is at 4.4. What does that tell me? Yes, this is it. I'm where I need to be, and I know that I have leverage, so I can go out and enjoy a steak. I can go and have a beer, and I know I'm going to be okay. As long as you manage gout, it's not going to manage you.
Mhm.
Great advice, Gary. I think it's really important to mention that if you don't manage gout, it will manage you. Love that line that you say.
Yeah.
All right. So I think for number 5, we're going to give it to both of you. So this one will be all about seeking support. So whoever wants to go first, go for it.
Well, this
Chris, you
thing,
want to jump in?
yeah, I mean, I feel like seeking support, each person has their own, I think, resources. So we've talked about talking to your doctor, and I don't want people to think that they absolutely have to be eyeball to eyeball with their doctor. You could easily do this one by phone. If you were traveling, like we were saying earlier, just asking for a flare-up medicine, you could do that through the nurse and say, hey, listen, I'm getting ready to travel, going to wherever. Can I get some for flare just in case, right? And so that's one resource. Another resource, for those of you that have a spouse, I certainly do, and I find that spouses are very good at making sure the other spouse takes their medicine. Right? They make double sure. In fact, they don't want their trip ruined either. So in this case, you could say, honey, sometimes I'm not really in the routine of taking my meds when we're traveling because I'm kind of off my normal routine for obvious reasons. And so you say, can you help me? And I feel like addressing problems and obstacles with your spouse is, building a better relationship all over the place. So that might be an avenue for you. Other people around you could be an avenue. Any place where you feel like you need the help, just ask for it.
Great. And I'm going to say that, yes, go ahead.
You cover the Gout Support Group of America, because when you have access to just typing in to 15,000 people, some of which are, doctors, some of which are patients been living with gout like Gary for many, many years, you have a question that comes up. Wouldn't it be nice if you had access to an encyclopedia, if you will, of the knowledge out there? So Gout Support Group of America is a resource. Type in a question, have a complaint, just how do you address this? How do you address that? That's a resource. I should have said it at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. When I think of gout, there's in America, there's 9 million people living with gout. It's, it's the most, what's the word? It's the most important, or not important, but when it comes to arthritis, gout is king, right? It's just the main arthritis disease. There's 9 million of us. And yet, for some reason, there's just so much stigma when it comes to this disease. It really saddens me. It upsets me at times when I think back. And I can remember just there were many occasions where I would go out and just wanting to be with friends and family, walking around, but I couldn't walk, right? The gout was on. The inflammation was on. So I was limping around. They used to call me Gimpy, right? Just because my friends, that was a enduring term, Gimpy, sir. But for most people, when they think of gout, they think, well, that person has that disease because their life is out of control. They're eating too much, red meat. They're probably an alcoholic. They can't control themselves, and so they maybe deserve that pain. You think I'm kidding me? There's a lot of people that think that way, unfortunately. And I want to tell you that we need to normalize gout. Gout needs to be normalized. It's just a form of arthritis. That's all it is. Once you have gout, and for whatever reason, it could be because, of your genetics, right? And that was me. I have it running in my family. And so I was just blessed with the disease. It could be because one of your organs are, it's not efficient in getting rid of the uric acid level. And so your uric acid level has been creeping up for years. And it's at the point where it's now saturated and your body is now creating uric acid crystals all around your joints and you're experiencing pain. It's not your fault, right? It's just because your body's not able to get rid of this uric acid. We need to normalize this, and how we can normalize it is have meaningful conversations with our friends and family members. It doesn't have to be, hey, let's sit down and have a coming to Jesus conversation. It doesn't have to be that serious. It can be just, hey, listen, I want you to know that I have gout, and it runs in my family. Unfortunately, I've had it since I was 24, and I've had a terrible time getting a diagnosis. And for myself, it took 16 years. I'm out of the woods now. I still have the disease. There's no cure for it. I managed this disease successfully. I haven't had a painful attack in 13 years, and there's 9 million of us, and it's not our fault. I just want you to understand that if I'm grumpy, it might be because the gout is on, right? And it's kicking my butt, and I'm grumpy. So you have the conversation and you normalize it. And I want you to know it's not your fault. And the support group, as Chris said, the Gout Support Group of America is here to bring everybody together. So collectively, you guys, we have a voice. And you know what's cool? As Chris was saying, where else can you go and have access to 15,000 people at a grassroots level with people living with gout? They're telling you what they're experiencing, what is working for them, what is not working for them, what their experience at the doctor is, and maybe some advice on what to ask the next time you're at the doctor. I mean, it's a wealth of information. And the big thing is you're not alone, right? So, and that's probably the biggest message I want to make sure that you guys hear, that you are not alone. If you're living with gout, I'm here with you. So
that was beautiful, Gary. And I was going to amplify something you said earlier about getting another opinion. And certainly, thank goodness you did, and finally got to my office so many years ago now. There's a real teaching point there. And so I just want to reiterate and amplify that if you are navigating with whoever you're seeing, whatever doctor you're seeing, or healthcare provider, as it's sometimes said, it might be a PA or a nurse practitioner or whatever, that's fine. But if you're not getting adequate results to that therapy, it has nothing to do with I like them or I trust them or loyalty. It's just like, hey, I just want to get another opinion. It's okay. And those second opinions, if patient and medical provider and specialist have an open mind, everybody wins because everybody learns something. So if you're struggling and you say, hey, I want to go see a rheumatologist. In fact, do you know any that really like gout? Because maybe I'd like to see a rheumatologist who's not the lupus guy, if you will. And so if you find one of those persons and they tell you, I would do it exactly how it's being done, I like everything that your doctor is doing, it gives you and that doctor a lot of confidence. Now reverse that. And so you go and they have a bunch of new ideas on how to be successful, and you were not being successful. Now, isn't it great that you identified a whole bunch of other strategies to get this thing under control? And your previous doctor or your primary doctor who you were seeing, they get to benefit from that learning as well. Right. And so this slide says, don't spend your summer inside in pain. To me, it's calling out. If things aren't going well, get another opinion. Everybody wins, especially you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I think that's just fantastic advice. And so that wraps up our 5 tips. So I'll just run through these very quickly so we have them all in one spot. So 5 tips: make sure to travel with your medications, stay hydrated, visit your doctor, plan ahead for a gout attack, and last but not least, seek support. As Gary and Dr. Parker said, there's a group of over 15,000 people who are there. And so it's a great place to start. All right. And kind of on that note, the support note. So I just want everybody to remember that the Gout Support Group of America is here for you as a resource. So we have a website, goutsupportgroup.org. We have a bunch of resources there. So we have videos, we have blogs, we have papers, the Gout Doctor Checklist, and we'll just keep releasing more and more. So make sure to check there for that information, and then just basic information about gout. Make sure to sign up for our newsletter. We send out a quarterly newsletter, and we also send out emails about upcoming events. So make sure to sign up for that so you don't miss out. And then most importantly here on the Facebook group, just make sure you're posting and sharing and, supporting your peers and helping out other people on that group. Everybody in the group is supportive and there for you. So we just really want to, create that community for everybody.
Agreed. It really does kind of
yeah.
offload some of the difficulties with gout when you can speak to someone who can relate, because when gout patients explain how painful this is, unless it's someone else who has gout, they won't understand, right? And so therein lies something that I think is really valuable. And I wanted to amplify one other thing that you were sharing, Aaron, and that is, this is all the stuff that we do. Let me tell you some stuff we don't do, right? We're not selling anything. This is just here to help our people who are suffering from gout or loved ones or something like that. We're not selling things. We're not selling information. We're not selling your, data or anything like that. And we're certainly not selling you, some supplement or some other thing like that. We're just here to help. And that's the value of signing up, is as modern medicine advances, we want you to be in the know about what's new in gout. What other tricks of the trade are we learning? Medicine is advancing at a very rapid rate. And so this allows you to kind of stay on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Parker. And speaking of the newsletter and signing up for that, we're excited to announce a uric acid meter test kit giveaway. So if you go to the Gout Support Group of America or Gout Support Group website, you can scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see a little bar that says sign up for our newsletter. Just put your email in there, and if you sign up anytime in the next week, you will be entered into the drawing for a free uric acid meter test kit. And if you have already signed up for the newsletter, but you still want to join the contest, you can just post the link to the website in the Facebook group for all of the other members, and encourage them to sign up too. And you'll also automatically be entered to win a free test kit. And
awesome.
Yeah, so that brings us to the end of the presentation. So I think we're just going to jump into the Q&A now, and I'm just going to pull these up, but I will mention that if you are on the Facebook page, you can just comment on this post and we will get to your question. All right, so first question we have here. So Todd asked, what would you say is a normal variation of uric acid fluctuation? I've been very consistent diet-wise, but I've had my uric acid go from 4.7 to 7 in less than a month.
I'm glad you asked that, because it's case in point that there are some things we have a lot of control over. And you mentioned an important one. What we put in terms of diet, nutrition, and hydration and all that, you have a lot of control over. However, there's a lot of stuff you do not have control over, right? And those processes are going on below the radar. So does your kidney function fluctuate day by day? Yes. Are some cells turning over faster than others, and can that change? Sure. Even we were talking about hot sunny days and staying hydrated. Well, our metabolism changes based on just the ambient air temperature, right? And so all these things are going on. You don't have control over those. So what do you do with that information here? Well, number one, I applaud you for getting the data, actually checking and trying to understand where your uric acid levels are, because if you have that, you can do something with it, right? And so if you go, oh man, based on my current diet and whatever meds I'm on right now, if I'm on meds, I'm running from about 4.5 to 7, as you say. And so if you go, oh, well, if I need to have my uric acid consistently between like 2 and 6, right? Because when it gets into the 7, that's too hot. So you go, man, I need to have it. So I need to make some modifications. And if your diet is already tight, then I would go, well, I would do that. Don't try to make it even harder and even tighter, because you still have to live on Earth, right? And so you kind of go, I need to adjust my meds a little bit so I could really get in the sweet spot, as Gary was mentioning, and stay there. That's the key. That consistency of staying there allows you to do things like Gary said earlier. Oh man, I can go have a steak, I can go have a beer, I don't go hog wild, right? But I can enjoy those wonderful things and not have to pay for it later with a gut attack. That's the value of really understanding your numbers and then acting on them. Okay.
Well said.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we'll go to one. I see one here in the Q&A in Zoom. So my primary care doctor told me I do not need to see a rheumatologist.
Yeah. And so is that a question or a statement?
A statement, I think.
Okay. Great. I'm okay with that. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll just, kind of expand on my reason for saying great. If somebody has gout and it's perfectly managed with your primary, fine. You don't need to send people to a specialist that are already fixed. I'm trying to fix things that need fixing, right? And so that's why I said earlier, if you're not having success, that's a good idea to go. But if you are totally having success, there's not much for me to do. And I would agree. So the message is, in short, if things aren't going well, that's the value of a specialist. Rheumatologists are the experts, if you will, in inflammatory arthritis, meaning gout and rheumatoid arthritis and other conditions that make your joints sick, if you will, not just wear and tear. And we all get that. We're the ones. And within the world of rheumatology, some guys like me are highly interested in gout. That would be the ideal person to see if you need someone. Any rheumatologist would do, because they're much more knowledgeable, because we don't have as much to think about as your primary, right? They got a bunch of stuff to think about. We're just only honed down to the world of rheumatology. That's why we're the specialists.
Yeah, I would encourage that person to ask the question, why? Why are you wanting or thinking about wanting to see another doctor? Is it maybe the fact that you are still experiencing gout flares, and you've seen this doctor for maybe a year, a long time, right? I mean, there's just so. But like Chris said, if your doctor is, helping you to manage the disease, there's no reason to go. But on the other hand, I'm gonna just say this: if you're experiencing more than one attack a year, it's out of control, right? And so I would let that sink in a tad bit. If your doctor is not big on getting the data, like they're maybe shy from doing blood work, I'd maybe seek a second opinion, right? If your doctor is maybe iffy about, I'll give you some allopurinol, but they have a very low dosage because they're working you up, but they've forgotten to maybe taper you up, right, to where you need to be. Maybe, you need to go see, get a second opinion. If your doctor is shy about maybe even giving you anti-inflammation medication just in case, and they're saying, hey, I'm only going to give it to you if you have an attack, well, maybe you might want to get a second opinion, right? Because you don't wait for the engine to blow up. You give it regular oil changes, right? To keep the maintenance going. So
yeah, thank you both. All right, next question. Is it normal to feel tired or sleepy after a flare? I thought that I just had, or I thought that I was just not getting a good night's sleep, but I'm feeling really tired for a longer period this afternoon.
Hmm. You know, I'll weigh in on the medical side. I'm a person who comes from a high uric acid making family like Gary, but I've never had a gout attack and I don't want one. So I started taking allopurinol before it got high. But my answer to that, as a person who's never experienced it, is I've seen so many patients have flare-ups that are so painful. I gotta believe this really takes the wind out of your sails, the sheer pain of it and all that goes into it. I got to believe that would cause very real fatigue. Like I said, wind out of the sails, and how long it takes to get back in the sails. Hey, you know, probably everybody's different, but I think it's totally justifiable to have fatigue after a gout flare.
Mm.
Great, thank you. All right, so next question. I had a bad reaction to allopurinol, skin blistered and left an ugly scar. Is this a common reaction?
Yeah, I'm happy to cover that. So first, no, it is not a common reaction, but yes, it is a potential side effect of allopurinol. It is uncommon. It is uncommon. In fact, 97% of people that take allopurinol have no side effects at all, right? But there's still that 3% or so out there. So here's the good news. And Gary kind of mentioned this in passing, that he was doing a medicine switch. And the reason that this happens with some regularity is either somebody doesn't tolerate plan A, in this case, allopurinol, or it's just not working well enough. Either one of those, happily, we have other options, right? And so herein, lies the benefit also of seeing a specialist. Specialists often have a much a bigger toolbox, if you will, of other options when needed, right? And so if you're out there and not tolerating allopurinol or plan A, and your doc is just like, yeah, I'm not really sure what to do, oh, I'd see a specialist. And I'm here to tell you, we have other options. We have other options. So zip right over and get that solved. Oh, one other thing about this. If you said, I'm just putting myself in your shoes. If I went to that specialist and kind of go, okay, you're going to give me this new medicine for gout, how likely is it that how I would have the exact same problem happen with this medicine, right? Because if your rash was bad, it sounds bad. I wouldn't want that to happen again. I got more good news for you. The other options that we have in the toolbox, even if they're uric acid lowering, the chemical structure is wildly different than allopurinol, and it should give your doctor and you great confidence. And sometimes I've literally even showed patients the chemical structure so I can go, listen, even though you don't know what this means, you can see that that's clearly different than that, right? And they go, right. And I go, there you go. Don't worry about that. I think, it'd be 1 in a million to have the same thing happen.
Yeah, it sounds to me like your side effect is pretty bad. I can relate to that. I was on allopurinol for many, many years. And in fact, I think at the beginning, we tried Uloric, and my insurance company, Chris, gave me such a hard time that we had to switch back to allopurinol. With my body, I actually get a rash here and there. My skin gets pretty sensitive. Sometimes I will start just scratching my legs. But then I think back and I'm like, okay, do I want to get off of this medication, go back to where I was when it was out of control? No way. Absolutely no way. I remember the painful flares. I remember just laying in bed and having the fan turn on, and the wind is blowing across my toe. It would shoot sharp pains through my body. I mean, no one wants to go through that. I don't want to go back to that. So, I had to kind of weigh the options. Okay, so I lost the battle with the insurance company. They're not going to give me Uloric. So I'm going to, for myself, I took allopurinol and I found the perfect dosage to, manage my gout. Was my rash out of control? Every now and then I just have it would itch. But thank God, I'm at a point where I'm able to switch now. I'm able to switch medication, and hopefully this is going to be putting me on a even better track. So this is part of what we're talking about, finding your voice, right? If you're having major, like your skin is blistering, that's not normal, right? I would definitely bring that up to your rheumatologist, your specialist, your healthcare partner as a concern. And like Chris says, there are more tools in that toolbox. So
Mhm.
good luck. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you guys. Okay, so next one. Do any of the saliva uric acid tests work well? Avoiding the finger prick test would be great, but I'm not sure how well the saliva tests work.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Here's the thing. There's a lot of technologies out there that are still relatively new and not necessarily real dependable. So let me walk through what's dependable and what lacks some precision. Getting an actual blood test, it's not a finger stick, I'm talking about an actual blood test and sending that blood to the lab, is really the gold standard of figuring out what your uric acid level is in the blood. The lab is really good at this test, and it's an inexpensive test. So literally the same machine that checks sodium and potassium and chloride and all that checks uric acid, but you have to ask for it, right? The doctor has to ask, otherwise it won't show up in the lab results. Now, the world has advanced to where we have the finger stick versions, and Aaron mentioned one of those, and we're doing this giveaway, and Gary has one, and I agree with all that. They're not as precise as the blood test, and there's a lot of data that's gone into trying to make these as precise as possible. But you got to remember, like the diabetics that have been doing this for blood sugar, they're decades in front of us, decades, right? So this is going to continue to evolve. But the long and short of it is this, and I'll just give you some basic background. The little strips that we put our blood on to check uric acid, well, they're kind of finicky in that the oxygen in the air actually has an impact on how well they work. And so we want to keep those, not in a jar that's open. So when we use the ones that we're giving away, they've solved that by individually wrapping each one of those test strips. But some makers just sell them in a jar. They open it up, the oxygen goes in there, and then they close it, and then tomorrow they do it again or whenever. And you can see that the precision is going to go away over time, right? And so that's just one example. And then an even newer version is, as you mentioned, saliva testing. And I have not seen that precision has really been worked out. Do I feel like there's some value? Yes, because you're still trying to tune in to what your levels are. I got to think that if you were getting a 12, you would do something, right? Because it should be between like 2 and 6. And so if you were checking your saliva, and even with the precision is not that good, it's 4.4, you're like, well, even if it's kind of in the ballpark, I'm still in the zone, is how I would handle that. So some data is better than none is one answer. And then saliva is probably not as good as blood, but hopefully someday it will be.
Great, thank you. All right, I know we're getting close to time, but I do see 2 more questions in here. So, all right, first one, someone said, I have been pretty much okay for a while since I started taking allopurinol. Yesterday, though, as I was getting into my wife's car, the heel of my left foot hooked on the door frame, extended my left foot all the way down, and it was like an instant flare up. It hasn't gotten as intense as I'm used to, but it came on in seconds and is going from the ankle to the arch and to the toe and all over. Starting some colchicine now and may have to get the steroid stash if it gets worse. Is this common?
I gotta confess that when I was a younger rheumatologist, I really felt that there's no way trauma could trigger a gout attack, but I kept hearing of these experiences in clinic. And I eventually had to open my mind that there's no way everybody's making this up. And so I completely believe that trauma can cause a flare-up. And the only way that I really started to understand it is trauma impacts the microenvironment of the area. And so our bodies like homeostasis, same oxygen level, same sodium level, same everything level. And so if you kind of get out of homeostasis, in this case from trauma, that can send the immune system into the area checking things out. If they see crystals, hey, those aren't supposed to be here. Bang, you now have a flare-up, and I completely believe that happens with some regularity.
And I can verify to that. When my gout was unmanaged and my levels were high, I would go to the gym, and if I accidentally bumped my elbow or something, it would trigger and an attack would come on. I can feel it, right? And so that's a sign that you're probably borderline, I think, right, with where your uric acid level is and whatnot. But yes, if you're borderline like that, I think if you hit a body part and you suffer some trauma, it will trigger a flare. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. And then last question I see in here. How do you feel about lemon and celery water? Tart cherry juice or cherries, do they really lower uric acid levels?
Let me put it like this, because I got no heartache with celery juice or celery, onion juice or onions, turnip juice or turnips, or anything that you want to eat. But if you are turning to those items to do the work of lowering uric acid, you're going to need some real luck in there as well, because those things are not going to robustly change the numbers consistently like you need. Now, there is some data out there that anything, doesn't have to be cherries or cherry juice or anything like that, but the citrusy fruits that have a lot of vitamin C has an effect on the kidney to help that uric acid go down, help your kidneys excrete uric acid a little. And I'll take a little, but most patients who are not on medicine need more than a little from time to time, right? And therein lies the pearl of the Gout Support Group of America, and talking with patients and listening to their story and kind of going, oh yeah, I tried X, Y, and Z, and I think it helped me for a while, but hang around, because I don't think anybody is on a celery juice diet and checks their labs, and they do this every day, and they're always in the sweet spot. That's what I want you to know. Diet alone almost always is not going to get you consistent, durable success. The only thing that does that is checking your numbers and acting on the data, often with a little medicine in there.
All right.
Well said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, that brings us to about time, and I don't see any more questions in there. So I think we're going to wrap things up. If I was thinking I could just kick it to you guys for any closing thoughts that you want to share with the group. So Gary, do you want to?
Yeah, you go first.
Go first.
All right, I'm going to share Chris's favorite saying, which is basically, if it's over 6, you need a fix.
Yeah. That's
Remember
a good one.
that.
And I'll share one of your favorite sayings then, and that is the Gout Support Group of America, and the reason we're here is to provide not only scientific, strategies based on real science, but to give you hope that this is doable, because I know it can beat you up or your loved one up so bad for so long you think there's just no way out. That is not true. Right? You can manage this thing and make it so that, just like Gary, you haven't had a flare up in years or decade or 13 years, whatever it is. There is hope. Start taking the bull by the horns and learning this stuff, seeing a specialist if you need to, get the data, act on it.
Perfect.
Great advice from both of you. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined us on Zoom and on Facebook Live. We really, really appreciate you guys being here. And keep an eye out. Coming next month, we'll have a blog kind of recapping these tips. But yeah, thank you for giving us an hour of your night, and hope you have a great rest of your evening. So thank you.
Aaron, for
Thank
moderating.
you.
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.